YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we've got another start and sit video to help you guys out with your Week 12 lineups. Now, we are talking wide receivers, and of course, in full PPR and half PPR. If it is a standard league, hit me up in the comments down below. So let's jump right into it. So week 12 of the NFL season is here, and we've got 4 teams on a bye. You've got the Broncos, the Chargers. You also have the Dolphins and the Commanders this week, which means you've got some pretty good receivers not being able to play, but you also have some great slate of receivers that are going to be in your lineup this week, minus injuries or anything like that. Now, these are your obvious starts at the wide receiver position. These are guys that should be in your lineup no matter what the stats say, no matter what the matchup says, or whatever. These guys are going to be in your lineup. Now, when you start jumping into the first receiver I've got DeVonta Smith versus the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, even with the latest trend of how they've been performing, are still one of the worst teams against the pass. They're allowing plenty of points to the wide receiver position. DeVonta Smith should be the one that ends up actually being the wide receiver that has the best success compared to A.J. Brown. I like DeVonta Smith a lot this week. He has been playing out of his mind when given the opportunities. He's gotten a lot more targets and a lot more consistency than A.J. Brown, which is why I want to put him as the start compared to A.J. Brown. DeVonta Smith has been great. Now, Dallas has improved in the last few weeks. In the last 6 weeks or so, Dallas has actually lowered themselves, only allowing about 23 fantasy points a game compared to where they were about 27 fantasy points. So they've improved. They're not the worst anymore, but again, a really good team that has seen some improvement, but is still going to give up plenty of points to DeVonta Smith. He is definitely the guy. I'm going to put him in there. Now, another receiver I really like is Rome Odunze versus the Steelers. Odunze is in a great position. The Steelers are allowing a decent amount of points to the wide receiver position. They have improved, like I said, like other teams, but they're still allowing 25 fantasy points, about 190 receiving yards, 2 wide receivers, and a touchdown per game. Odunze is definitely the clear-cut number 1 receiver on the Bears offense. He has done a really good job, especially compared to DJ Moore. Odunze right now coming into this week is wide receiver 20, and he's done a really good job. Now, as far as what I would like to see a little more out of him is more consistency. I like Caleb to actually really throw him the ball. Definitely something that they have some work to do because, again, Odunze is a really talented player because if you look at the last 4 weeks, unfortunately, Odunze is wide receiver 36, which is not great, right? That's not how you want to feel going into a game like this. But I do think the Steelers defense, even though they have improved slightly, are still going to struggle and allow Odunze to have a better game, and I like this matchup. Another receiver I like is Tetora McMillan. McMillan is in a great position against the 49ers. McMillan right now is wide receiver 6 in the last 4 weeks. He's been putting up amazing stat line. He's had a great game, especially if you look at what he was able to put up last week where he put up 33 fantasy points, which has been amazing. He's seeing plenty of targets as well, which is what I really love to see out of the rookie. He is probably one of my favorite receivers coming into the league. I think him and Puka obviously have been fantastic. And then you look at it, the last 6 weeks or so, the 49ers have struggled defensively. You lost, obviously, your anchor in Fred Warner, who has been the captain of that team. Obviously, no Nick Bosa. There's a lot of injuries on the defensive side, which is unfortunately where the 49ers have been allowing about 26 fantasy points per game. So again, the matchup's really good. I really like McMillan this week for sure. And another receiver is going to be T. Higgins versus the Patriots. I get it. This is a tough matchup with Christian Gonzalez. Gonzalez has been a fantastic cornerback. But the Patriots should allow enough points where T. Higgins has some success. Now, they are allowing about a touchdown per game to the wide receiver position, but only 117 receiving yards. So again, realistically, this is a tougher matchup for, T. Higgins, but I do believe that even with Flacco, I know there's been rumors of Burrow, but Flacco should still be in there. He's got a great connection with him. I know Jamar Chase won't be there, which means Higgins is going to see a lot more targets his way, which I think actually will still in turn to having a really good game. I think this is a really good matchup, even though it doesn't look like it on paper because of Christian Gonzalez. I still think Higgins is going to get enough targets where he's going to have some success. Now, jumping into this receivers, I'm going to sit. The first one's going to be Parker Washington versus the Cardinals. Now, Cardinals are actually a decent team against the wide receiver position. They're only allowing 17 points per game as a whole. just under a touchdown per game as well. I do think that this game is going to be really based off of the run. I think if the Jacksonville Jaguars want to have any type of success, they've got to run the ball with Tuden and Etienne. Now, both guys are coming off injury, so we'll see how they are utilized. Parker Washington will not have competition with Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas is expected to be out again. So, yes, Washington is going to get targets, but like I mentioned last week, Washington is going to struggle because defensively, the Cardinals have improved. Last week, Washington only put up 4 fantasy points. The week before that was about 11 against Houston. Really tough matchups, and another one against Arizona. So for me, I am not putting Washington in. I don't like the matchup at all. Another receiver I don't like this week, which is going to be shocking for some, is Michael Pittman versus the Chiefs. And I get it. Michael Pittman has done a really good job, even though he has started to struggle as well. For the season, he's going into this week really, really strong. But if you look at the last 4 weeks, Michael Pittman is nowhere near that. He's been wide receiver 45. He has struggled. Part of it has been the team, which is crazy because Pittman is coming off some 20-point performances. But again, coming off a bye, that partly plays part of it. You know, the Chiefs defense has played really well. They're third best team against wide receivers. They have done a really good job, and for them to have any success, especially a team that's desperate trying to keep their playoff hopes alive, they have to play out of their mind. And I do think that's going to happen. I think the Chiefs actually have some success. I think the Colts are going to have to try to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor to have any type of way of beating the Chiefs. I know the 5-5 Chiefs doesn't sound scary, but they are. Defensively, they're still really good. I do think Patrick Mahomes will help the team have success. So for me, Michael Pittman, I worry a lot. Even though he's had some really good games this season, I still am a little nervous. Now, jumping into the Panthers matchup against the 49ers, Juwan Jennings is actually one I'm kind of nervous as well. Even though Brock Purdy is back, and I do think that's a great thing for the 49ers, they're getting healthier. But the Panthers are actually pretty good against the wide receiver position. They've done a pretty good job the last 6 weeks, and they have only held wide receivers to 17 fantasy points. Only 150 receiving yards as a whole. I don't think that's going to be quite it in this one because the receiver core is not great for the 49ers. Obviously, Kittle should have some success, but they're also not allowing a lot of touchdowns as well, which has been the biggest thing. Juwan Jennings has been inconsistent as well. He's had some great games. He's had some bad games. And right now, if you look at how he's been able to perform the last few weeks, it's not been great. Jennings has not had any of the success that you would like to see out of, essentially, I guess you would call him the wide receiver 1 for the 49ers. Right, that's kind of where you're at with him. Obviously, with Pearsall being out, they got rid of Deebo Samuel. Realistically, it's Kittle, it's Christian McCaffrey. Like, those are the guys. Jennings has some games. Even Kendrick Bourne for a while was a really good receiver for like 3 or 4 outings. But again, the receiving core is too inconsistent. I'm going to sit him. And the last receiver I'm going to sit is going to be Romeo Doubs versus the Vikings. This one's tough because Romeo Doubs has seen plenty of opportunities and targets his way. When you look at where he's been able to do the last 4 weeks, he's only been wide receiver 35 though, but targets have been there, right? He had 8 last week. He had 4 in week 10. He had 10 in week 9, 6 in week 8, and then 8, 9, 9. Like, he's had plenty of opportunities, but he's not putting up the fantasy points. And when he does get some catches, he might only get 30 to 50 yards, which means he's not putting up a lot of fantasy points. He might get 9 to 10 points. And then you're going against a team that I do think that their defense is going to play pretty well. The Vikings, even though they've not been anywhere near the standard that you're typically seeing from a Vikings defense, because they have been allowing a decent amount of points, about a touchdown a game, 158 receiving yards. So the opportunity may be there. I do think they're going to, again, for them to have success against the Vikings, they're going to have to run the ball with Jacobs. If he plays, Wilson, we'll see how smart, Jordan Love really does. But for me, I'm going to kind of sit him there. Now, as far as my sleepers, I got Chris Olave versus the Falcons. I actually think the Saints upset the Falcons. I'm not sure where the line is on that one, but I do think Olave is going to have some success, even though, the Falcons defense has done really good overall. I do think that he's going to have some success, even though I'm not a big fan of their quarterback. But I like Chris Olave a lot as far as my sleeper. And the other one is Jerry Jeudy. I know I've mentioned him before, and he has not had the biggest games. I don't know where this Jerry Jeudy of last year is right now, but the Raiders are allowing a decent amount of points. The Raiders defense has not played well. I think the Browns end up winning this one. And I think Jerry Jeudy ends up having, a touchdown, maybe 60 yards, 4 receptions, a decent game. I think he's going to be about 15 to 16 points. I'd like this matchup a lot for him. So those are my start, sits, and sleepers for week 12 of the NFL wide receiver edition. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the comments down below. Make sure you guys are checking out all my other starting videos to help you guys out, because again, we are inching closer to the fantasy playoffs, and I want to make sure you guys are ready and prepared. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button. I'll check you guys out next time.